All right, Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles, the great millstone, who rule and teach well, who taught us this truth. This is your brother Yeshamai from the Jam Ass Atlantic Camp. Today's video is going to be going into the tribe of Asher. Okay? Now, before we get into the scriptures, I've got a map pulled up here of South America. Now, Asher are the people from Colombia down to Uruguay. Or more simply put, basically everybody in South America besides Chile and Argentina. Okay? That's who Asher is, from Colombia down to Uruguay. Now, let's get straight into the scriptures here. We're going to start at Genesis 49:1. It says, "And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days." And the reason we bring this scripture up when we go into the tribes is because knowing who the tribes are was a prophecy that would come to happen, and only the Israelites, starting with our elders and apostles, can get this understanding according to Amos 3:7, because verse 1 says that in the last days we would know who the tribes are, because right now the world, the general populace, they don't know who the tribes of Israel are. They say that they're just lost. Hey, but the spirit of prophecy is known who they are. Okay, so through the spirit, we're going to go into the tribe of Asher, because now we know who they are. All right, because in the last days, Asher would have certain characteristics that we can point them out from the people of the world. So let's get into it. Genesis 49, verse 20 says, "Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties." Now first, let's get the name Asher, which is pronounced Ashar, which goes into happy, or happy is he. Now from here, let's get the article that I got pulled up of Carnival, because Asher, is a very happy people. And, happy, when you go into the scriptures, when you read about people being merry or being happy, it involves, them, feasting. It involves them drinking, and that's what Carnival is. It says, "The Carnival of Brazil is an annual fest held a Friday afternoon before Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent, basically where they abstain from meat." And I'm just going to jump down. It says, hence the term Carnival, from carnilevare, to remove meat. Let me go down here and just get the point. It says, Carnival is the most popular holiday in Brazil and has become an event of huge proportions. Except for industrial production, retail establishments such as malls and carnival-related businesses, the country unifies completely for almost a week, and festivities are intense day and night, mainly in coastal cities. So check this out. The whole country shuts down besides the industrial production. Everybody goes on a 1 week happy thing, man. Woo. It says Rio de Janeiro's Carnival alone drew 6 million people in 2018, with 1.5 being from the outside. Rio's Carnival is the largest in the world according to Guinness World Records. So the world knows these people as happy. So even through this character, even through his name alone, that's an omen. The world knows that these people get down. Okay, so that's going into the name. Let's go back. It says his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. So in the time of Carnival, they're going in on the food, man. And those royal dainties, these are all those royal dainties that is going into. Okay? Royal dainties right here. The food that they eat, man. And this is, again, this is how you know that it's going into, those from, Brazil, those from Colombia down to Uruguay, because these are dainty foods. It's definitely not talking about so-called Chinese, man, because you're not gonna find a wombat as a dainty food, at least not for. I mean, anybody can go through this and say, yeah, that food looks good. Not everyone will agree that a wombat looks delicious, man. But these are dainty foods, right? Okay, so that's what that's going into, man. Is the dainty foods that are celebrated during Carnival. Now, keep in mind, they're eating good for a week, man. That's crazy. All right. So, I was gonna pull this video up, but sometimes the sound don't work. So let's go ahead and get back into the scriptures. His breast shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Heck, matter of fact, I think I got an article on that too. While many countries are known for their coffee, Brazil is arguably the most famous, being the world's largest producer. Other prominent coffee-producing nations include Vietnam, Colombia, and Ethiopia. Man, you know, coffee is hey, that's a dainty too, man. And they have Brazil is the most famous, man. I might get me some today, actually. But let's get back into the scriptures. So, like Deuteronomy 33, we'll get verse 24 because it continues on. You know, this right here, we really start to see who Asher is. So, Deuteronomy 33 and 24 says, "And of Asher he said, let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil." Now, a couple points to get here. It says, let him be blessed with children. They are blessed with children to the point that it's become a problem. It says Brazil faces a significant problem with homeless children, with an estimated 200,000 to 8 million living or working on the streets. Now, that is a huge population of children. But you know, again, he is fruitful to the point that it's become a problem, man. It says these children often come from impoverished backgrounds, face high levels of violence, inequality. You know, which also it goes into the curses, man. You know, to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You know, when you go into that word "lost," it's destroyed, man, and that's exactly what this is. You know, having high levels of violence. And then the second part, it says, "Let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren." You know, acceptable to his brethren. You know, is those other tribes. There ain't, you know, because there's always some kind of animosity between, you know, a Mexican and a Honduran, or a Mexican and a Salvadorian. Hey, every Mexican, every Honduran, every Salvadorian will accept Asher, especially during the time of Carnival, man. You know, it's but continue on. It says it says, and let him dip his foot in oil. Now, you know, let's go ahead and build on that. Venezuela, which is part of Asher, Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, estimated around 303 billion. See, Venezuela, even though it's got the largest oil reserves, they have sanctions on them. You know, let's go ahead and get that sanctions. Where you at? The U.S. has imposed various sanctions on Venezuela, targeting individuals, entities, and sectors of the Venezuelan economy, particularly related to oil and finances. These sanctions, which have been in place since 2005, pressure the government to respect democratic principles, human rights, and the rule of law, which we know that's going, you know, that's BS. But the reason I jumped to this article is, first, we see that his foot shall be dipped in oil, which is the landmass that he's in. You know, that landmass has a lot of oil. And then I jumped to these sanctions because even though they have all this oil, Esau Edom still has their foot on their neck through sanctions, which proves that they are under the curses. You know, it says here that they put them on there for democratic principle and human rights. That's not true. They just put it there because Venezuela ain't bowing down to Esau Edom, just like North Korea. But they always gave you some fancy excuse as, oh, we're doing this because of this. No, that's not it. Let's continue on. It says, where are we at? 24. So like it says, thy shoes shall be iron and brass. So again, this is going into that landmass that they're in right now. And as thy days, so shall thy strength be. So going into the shoes shall be iron and brass. It says Brazil is known for its rich minerals, such as deposits of iron, which that's exactly from the scriptures. All right, iron and brass. It also holds iron, niobium, tin, bauxite, and manganese. It also holds substantial reserves of other metals such as copper, gold, and nickel, as well as rare earth. Brazil's mining industry is a major contributor to its economy and plays a significant role in global mineral supply. It plays a significant role in global mineral supply. So, again, it's showing you that the landmass, in the end of days, the landmass would have them be in a place that's rich with these metals, man. And I pointed out that it's a significant role in global mineral supply. Everyone understands their role with the minerals, man. So now, let's go into Judges 4 and 3. That's why I had that pulled up, because and this is a point that of course was shown to us by our elders. Because first let's read it. It says, "And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel." When you go into that word iron, even because that word iron is barazal, which means iron and ore. Which barazal sounds just like Brazil, which Brazil is of the tribe of Asher, which it says, "Thy shoes shall be iron and brass," man. All right. So that it's just things throughout the scriptures that we see that through the Spirit we can line up to see who the tribes are. I had some more articles pulled up. Let me see here. Oh yeah. Okay. So, again, we just went through the characteristics of Asher, but now, apart from the characteristics, do the children of Asher, from Colombia to Uruguay, do they line up with the curses? South America's history is deeply intertwined with colonialism, primarily by Spain and Portugal, Edomites. This period began in the 15th and 16th centuries, resulted in the subjugation of indigenous populations, the exploitation of resources, and their imposition of European cultures, languages, and political systems. Again, Esau forcing his hand, and forcing his wine upon our people, but also, destroying the indigenous populations. Why? Because even though our people may not know who they are, Esau knows who you are, man. That's why he got on a boat and risked his life to come and conquer. It says, while independence movements emerged in the 19th century, the legacy of colonialism continues to shape social, economic, and political structures in South America today. It says, indigenous impact. It says, indigenous populations suffer significant losses due to disease, labor displacement. Colonialism disrupted traditional ways of life, of course, languages, and social structures. Let's see here, legacy of colonialism. Yeah, man. So, really, do they fit? Do they line up with the curses? Let's get Deuteronomy 28. 28 and 49. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Right. So going into Spain, going into them changing their language, from one that they didn't understand to one that they now speak, man. They imposed their laws upon us, man. So let's continue on with the next article. It says, it says right here, the genocide of indigenous people in Brazil. It says, the genocide of indigenous people in Brazil began with the Portuguese colonization of the Americas, with Pedro Álvares Cabral made landfall in Brazil in 1500. This started the process that led to the depopulation of the indigenous people in Brazil because of disease and violent treatment by the Portuguese settlers and their gradual replacement with colonists from Europe and enslaved peoples from Africa. Damn. Hey, let him be accepted of his brethren too, because those slaves from Africa included the southern kingdom too, because that's where the southern kingdom fled to after 70 AD. It says this process has been described as a genocide and continues into the modern era with the destruction of the indigenous people of the Amazonian region. To this day, our people are still catching out, man. To this day. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm just going to read this part right here. It says, over 80 indigenous tribes were destroyed between 1900 and 1957. And the overall indigenous population declined by over 80%, from over 1 million to around 200,000. Damn. Completely destroyed, man. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old nor show favor to the young, man. They decimated 80% of the population. They didn't spare the old or the young, man. So yeah, these people are under the curses, man. That's another identifying factor, man. That's pretty much what I had for the people of Brazil. Let's see. Brazil. Brazil. Let's just get some of the people. Brazilians. Here you go. Here's the people of Brazil, man. And, because of them being conquered by Portugal and Spain, man, Brazil will also have a lot of tears, man, because these damn Edomites, they went into our females, man. So, but yeah, man, this is the tribe of Asher, man. Always smiling, happy as he. So, hopefully this lesson has been edifying. And until the next one, shalom.